want to we want to mention the great on connecting people around the world through astronomy, and they have done a fantastic job of sending 46,000 recycled solar eclipse glasses to Chile and Argentina for this event, which is tremendous work. And yes, yeah, a lot of people are able to now really enjoy this eclipse with eclipse glasses, thanks to Astronomers Without Borders.
And when we were in Argentina last time, the eclipse was a very narrow strip across Argentina. Now it's even further down on that cone, and only a few people can see it, really. Isn't that right?
Right. So, yeah, I mean, well, we're looking here, in fact, at our eclipse map for today. So here we're looking at a very big shaded area, which is covering, most of South America and even a little bit of Africa. Now, this big shaded area is showing where a partial solar eclipse is visible today. So Paraguay, Bolivia, parts of South Africa, they will see the moon take a bite out of the sun and produce a partial solar eclipse. In order to see totality, in order to see the moon completely cover the sun, you need to be on the path of totality, and that is the very narrow dark red line in the middle of this map, just the very, very narrowest innermost line. It's only about 90 kilometers across, and to see the perfect alignment of the sun and the moon in the sky, you've got to be within that very narrow corridor.
And standing within the deep of that narrow corridor, that's where you get the longest lasting eclipse, right?
That's right. Now, the map we're looking at here is in fact a live map. So the path of totality, the path that the umbra, this is the very, very darkest part of the moon's shadow. We can see it's taking this path. It's about 15,000 kilometers long, starting in the Pacific, crossing Chile and Argentina, and ending up in the Atlantic. If we look in the Pacific, we can see a red dot that is slowly moving towards Chile and Argentina. That is a live representation of where the umbra is right now. So right now, out in the Pacific, there is a small area about 100 kilometers across, and there the moon is completely blocking the sun's light. This very, very small point of dark shadow, it is rushing towards Chile at thousands of kilometers an hour, and it will be reaching Chile. Well, at our location in Chile, totality starts at 16:03. So that's really that's in 1 hour. So over the next hour, that red dot will continue racing across the Pacific and will be arriving overland in 1 hour.
And even though we saw our image from there that it's wet, it's cloudy, and we're just hoping for clear weather, but even so, we will notice that there will be a totality there. It will get darker. So we'll see how. Maybe we'll have some people outside cheering at least as the sky grows darker. So we're going to leave you there with some images from El Condor. And we're going to take a bit of a break. We'll be back in a few minutes and tell you a bit more about oh, let me just see with my script here, what a solar eclipse is and how it works. And make sure you go to timeanddate.live, and there you'll find our live news stream where you'll find more information about what's going on during this eclipse. There will be people's tweets and people's Instagram images there, and you can post us your questions, Q&A later on. And did I remember it all, Graham?
I think you did, yes.
Well, we'll see you back soon.
One of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right, but not enough about the subject to know you're wrong. There's like a gazillion hours of me on the internet. In almost every case, I'm talking about the universe, black holes, the Big Bang, time travel, God. But what I'm gonna do in this masterclass is teach you how to think. The goal here is to train your mind how to see the world differently, how to question what others say. I've come to realize that there are three categories of truth: personal truth, political truths, and the objective truths that shape our understanding of the universe. The interesting thing about an objective truth is that it's true no matter what. Imagine that. By the time we're done, you will be equipped with some methods and tools so you can turn data into information, information into knowledge, knowledge into wisdom. We all have susceptibility to bias. Search engines on the internet are the epitome of confirmation bias. And you're going to use that as evidence that you are correct? No. The good thing about science
the rocket equation. It's a beautiful thing. No astronaut.
We're back here on timeanddate.com. We're looking at some pretty sad images, I think, when we're looking at the solar eclipse from Volcano Villarrica in Chile. They must be very frustrated over there. Fortunately, Piedra de Aguila, we've got some good images of the partial phase there. Everybody's struggling a bit technically. So yeah, a little bit in and out. The connectivity isn't too good. So we're doing our best to keep the images coming. But we are watching a total solar eclipse. I'm in Norway, Graham's in Japan. We're looking at this on a screen in Argentina and Chile, and that's what the world has become. But the moon has started to take a big bite out of the sun. On our timeline below there, we can see that we're about a third into the partial phase of this total solar eclipse, totality coming up in just under an hour. So yeah, I want to ask you, Graham, what is a solar eclipse? Why are we so giggly and excited about this?
So a solar eclipse, where the moon is blocking the light from the sun. Well, here we have a diagram, in fact, which shows exactly what is happening here. So we have this perfect alignment between the sun, the moon, and the Earth. The moon casts two shadows. There is the faint outer shadow that's called the penumbra. That is a fairly big shadow. As we saw earlier, large parts of South America, the Pacific, the Atlantic, right down to Antarctica, will see a partial eclipse, will be covered by the penumbra today. The umbra, the very dark part of the shadow, where the moon is completely blocking the sun's light, that is a much smaller shadow. By the time it reaches the Earth, it has narrowed and tapered until, well, today, when it strikes the Earth, it's only about 90 kilometers wide. It is just an incredibly small dark shadow which just reaches the Earth and just causes this amazing phenomenon that that is a total solar eclipse.
And this image here is not really to scale, but it shows, because the sun is way out, would be way out of our picture here, but so the distances are much further, aren't they, Graham? Here you go. We've got a little to scale image popping up above us here.
Right. So what we have now at the top of the screen is we have really the same diagram that we have in the center of the screen, but at the top of the screen we now have the moon and the Earth to scale. And this scale diagram, I mean, I think this really brings home just the amazing geometry of a solar eclipse. So the umbra, that very dark innermost part of the moon's shadow, it's very long, it's very narrow, it stretches across space until it just reaches the Earth just before it tapers out to nothing. On this scale diagram at the top, as you said, Anna, the sun is way over to the left. On this same scale, looking at there, I mean, let's say the Earth is 1 centimeter in diameter. On the same scale, the sun is over 1 meter in diameter. And if you were to put it as part of this diagram, you'd have to put it over 100 meters away. So it's just way off screen. So yes, the geometry that produces these total solar eclipses is, it is a very delicately balanced geometry between the sun, the moon, and the earth.
And yet it happens maybe twice a year even.
It happens, well, solar eclipses do happen at least twice a year somewhere in the world.
But why don't we have an eclipse every month then when these line up?
Right, so as we're looking at the things lining up here, we are looking at a new moon. When the moon passes between the Earth and the Sun, that is a new moon. Why don't we get a solar eclipse at every new moon? Well, that's because at every new moon, it's not quite a perfect alignment. The moon's orbit is slightly tilted, and sometimes it's just a little bit above the Earth-Sun line. Other times, it's just a little bit below a kind of an imaginary line that's connecting the Earth and the Sun. But twice a year, it lines up perfectly. Its tilt lines up with the plane of the Earth's orbit around the Sun. So twice a year, about every 6 months, we do get eclipses. On this calendar here, this does show us this twice yearly eclipse season. There is a period of about 34 days where the tilt of the moon's orbit is closely aligned enough with the Earth's orbit around the Sun to produce this 34-day window where an eclipse can happen. And if there is a new moon during that time, there will be a solar eclipse. And if there is a full moon during that time, and that means you've then got the Sun, the Earth, and the moon lined up, then that produces a lunar eclipse. And because the moon's cycle from new moon to full moon back to new moon again, that synodic month, it's called, the time it takes the moon to go through all its phases, that's 29.5 days. The window where an eclipse can happen is 34 days. So that means that in every eclipse season, we are guaranteed at least one solar eclipse and at least one lunar eclipse.
And you explained something to me that the alignment, the perfect alignment, only happens either for the lunar eclipse or for the solar eclipse. It's very rare that it happens that we get a total solar eclipse and a total lunar eclipse in the same eclipse season, right?
Right. So the new moon and the full moon, they are 2 weeks apart. So if you get the really, really perfect alignment for one, you get a slightly imperfect alignment for the other. So 2 weeks ago, we had another live stream here on timeanddate.com. That was for a lunar eclipse, but that was just a penumbral lunar eclipse. The moon moved through the Earth's shadow, but not through the very dark central part of the Earth's shadow, just the faint outer part. 2 weeks later, today, the alignment is perfect. So the Earth is moving through the darkest part of the moon's shadow. And by the way, Anna, talking about our penumbral eclipse 2 weeks ago, that was, of course, a very difficult eclipse to observe because the Earth's penumbra is this very faint shadow, and we couldn't really see a very dramatic darkening on the moon. Kind of looking at these pictures from Volcano Villarrica, this this does show us why, because right now, Volcano Villarrica is in the moon's penumbra. The light level is slightly reduced because about half of the sun has been covered up by the moon. But when we look at these pictures here, it doesn't look much different to what we were looking at the very beginning of our live stream. The half of the sun is being blocked here, but it's not causing a dramatic darkening.
No.
The big darkening comes right at the very end of the partial phase, when nearly all of it's like from when 80% of the sun has been covered by the moon. That's when you really start to notice dramatic changes in light levels and temperature. Right now, here's a 50% partial eclipse, and it doesn't look really any different at all to how things were looking at the beginning of our live stream before the eclipse began.
Looks very disappointing, and I'm still hoping the clouds will clear and the sun will magically appear and then disappear very quickly, but fingers crossed for that. We were looking at a little bit at the eclipse seasons, and I think it's worth talking about that too. Like we have, for a solar eclipse, it has to be quite perfect. You have to be right in that narrow strip where you can see, where you're standing in the shadow, in the moon's shadow, when the moon covers the earth, to be able to know the sun, to be able to see the eclipse. But during a lunar eclipse, it becomes a little bit easier to see it because you only have to be on the night side of Earth to see it. Isn't that right, Graham?
That's right. So yeah, this eclipse calendar is showing all of the eclipses over the past 4 years. And for any one location on Earth, quite a few of these lunar eclipses would have been visible because, yeah, as you say, the only required location condition to see a lunar eclipse is that you've just got to be pointed towards the moon. And because lunar eclipses happen at full moon, that means that anybody on the nighttime side of the Earth has the moon in the sky and can see a lunar eclipse happening. Solar eclipses are very different because, as we saw on that diagram, the moon's shadow is so small when it reaches the Earth that you've really got to be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. And Anna, we've got our first pictures from Sierra Colorada in Argentina.
Yes. Gets me very excited. I'm hoping that we'll be able to show you quite a few totalities once we've ironed out all the kinks on our side, on their side. And in the meantime, we have a beautiful live page that you can go to, timeanddate.live. We've got our stream above there. You can look at the eclipse while you can read information in our news stream there. There's pictures being shared. You can share your own pictures. You can ask us questions. And so go and have a look, and we'll just leave you here with this beautiful image of the sun, and see you soon.
One of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right.
Hey, welcome back. We're here just under half an hour away from totality, as we can see from the timeline below there in Valletta, Argentina. And we hope the weather holds up. We hope all the streams hold up. And there has been a lot of talk about this, about whether or not we would be able to see this eclipse. And you were at a symposium last week about this, weren't you, Graham?
Right, last week there was an International Astronomical Union symposium, which was originally planned to be held in Bariloche, which was very close to the path of totality for today's eclipse. And the plan was that everybody would go to the symposium and then go out on buses to watch the eclipse today. Of course, that didn't happen. The symposium turned into an online event. But there was a lot of talk and a lot of discussion about how this is really the first eclipse for a very long time where there are really, no one's traveling to cover the eclipse. The kind of the sort of the usual experienced people for covering eclipses are unable to travel. We are working with local partners today, who are really doing this for the first for the first time. And there was a lot of discussion last week about how it would go today with streams and images from along the path of totality. We should say that we are actually really grateful to our partners who are providing us with these images. So from Valletta and from 4 of our locations in Argentina, we have Canal 10, Channel 10 from the Rio Negro province of Argentina. And they are getting us, both of the images of the sun that we're looking at right now from Valletta and from Sierra Colorada. Our images from Piedra del Águila, they are coming from RTN, Radio Televisión del Neuquén. That's from the Neuquén province of Argentina. That was where we were supposed to be today, Anna. We should also say a big thanks to the local government in Piedra del Águila, who gave us a lot of help with the logistics for our trip, which in the end never happened. And finally, from Volcano Villarrica, where totality will be starting in about 13 minutes. We are getting those pictures from the Institute of Astrophysics at the Pontificia Universidad Católica, which is based in Santiago, Chile. A team has traveled down from the capital and has got set up on the slopes of the volcano. They're up at about 1,500 meters. They've been putting in microwave links in order to get the images out to the world. They've been doing a fabulous job. The only thing that hasn't been working for them, of course, has been the weather, because they still seem completely clouded out there. But across the border from Argentina, we are getting some nice images now of the eclipse sun, and the partial eclipse is getting pretty deep now.
Oh, it's getting very deep, and we need to talk a little bit about what happens during totality, and we'll do that after a little break. We'll be back in a few minutes talking about the solar corona and what that will look like, and maybe some things that we'll have to look for during totality. So make sure you go to timeanddead.live, check out pictures, check out our news stream, ask us questions, and we'll see you back here soon.
There's a place in your heart, and I know that it is love. And this place could be much brighter than tomorrow. There are people dying. Doctor? If you care enough for the living, make a little space. If you want to know why, there's a love that cannot lie. Spirits never die. We could really get there if you care enough for the living. Make a better place for you and for me. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are ways to get there if you care enough for the living. Make a better place for you and for me.
em 2021, volte a brilhar.
for you and for me.
Bradesco.
Olá, sou Tuca Reynés, fotógrafo especializado em arquitetura e lifestyle. Publiquei minhas fotografias em dezenas de revistas, como Metropolitan Home, Casa Vogue, Traveler Condé Nast, Wallpaper, Elle e AD. E também livros de editoras como a Taschen. E além disso, minhas obras também estão presentes em diversas fundações e museus do Brasil. Minha formação como arquiteto me aproximou da fotografia de interiores. Quando o cliente encomenda esse tipo de fotos, é importante entender a história do local, estudar a sua orientação solar e selecionar as suas perspectivas mais interessantes. Uma boa fotografia de arquitetura de interiores potencializa a imagem de qualquer espaço. Neste curso da Doméstica, você vai aprender a fotografar interiores arquitetônicos, seja para redes sociais, editoras ou projetos pessoais. Vou te ensinar desde os primeiros passos da configuração da câmera até a edição final das fotografias, escolhendo sempre o melhor ponto de vista e usando a luz natural. Como projeto final, você vai fazer uma sessão de fotos do interior de um espaço, tendo como objetivo contar a história do local escolhido por meio de imagens. Para começar, vou te contar um pouco da minha história e dos mestres que me inspiraram na minha trajetória. Vou falar da abrangência desse tipo de fotografia e de seus diferentes mercados. Também vou usar como exemplo os trabalhos que fiz e te contar o que aprendi com eles. Veremos juntos o equipamento necessário para realizar uma sessão de fotografias de arquitetura interior, como câmeras, lentes e acessórios. Com o equipamento separado, iremos para o local da sessão das fotos. Conheceremos todo o espaço e entenderemos a história que será contada com as fotos. Depois vou usar 2 aplicativos que ajudarão a entender as condições de tempo e luz. Eu vou mostrar como fazer a direção de arte e arrumar o espaço. E finalmente estaremos preparados para colocar a mão na massa. E com esta sessão, teremos entre 6 e 12 boas fotos. Elas serão editadas e tratadas nos programas Bridge e Camera Raw do Photoshop. Ao finalizar esse curso, você saberá como fotografar espaços internos trabalhando com luz natural. Você só vai precisar de uma câmera fotográfica, de um computador com programa de tratamento e edição de imagens e um bom calçado para caminhar. Este curso está dirigido a qualquer pessoa que tenha interesse em arquitetura, fotografia ou decoração e queira aprender a capturar imagens por meio das diversas possibilidades da fotografia.
Welcome back. So we've got our studio here in Stavanger, Norway. They're working really hard in the background here to make sure that we're getting okay images from all these different partial eclipses. It's the same partial eclipse with different feeds. And we're closing in on totality, and we're hoping to bring you proper totality. And during totality, we see something really special, and you can only see it during a total solar eclipse, and that's the solar corona, isn't it, Graham?
Right. Yeah. In some ways, that is the big highlight of a total solar eclipse. Right. The solar corona, the outer part of the sun's atmosphere, which is always there. It's always above us in the sky all day long. It's just that it's a lot fainter than the bright central disk of the sun, so we never get to see it. The only time we can see it is when that central disk of the sun is completely covered, and we can see this well, very kind of ghostly corona poking out from behind the moon. That is the outer atmosphere of the sun, the solar corona.
And it normally doesn't look the same, right? It can change quite dramatically from one solar eclipse to another.
Right. There is a lot of movement in the solar corona, so it never looks the same. There is also a big difference depending on where we are in the solar cycle. The sun does have a rhythm which is around about 11 years long. This is tied in with sunspots. We have a solar minimum where there's really no sunspots, and that builds through to a solar maximum where we have the highest number of sunspots, and then it tapers off again to another solar minimum. At the moment, we are just coming out of a solar minimum. And for this eclipse, the solar corona should be looking something rather like, well, in this comparison that we can see on the screen. During solar minimum, the solar corona tends to have a slightly wing-shaped look. Jumping forward to halfway through this next solar cycle, for the big forthcoming total eclipse across North America in 2024, that will be very close to the middle of the cycle, to closer to solar maximum. And there, the solar corona will look much more symmetrical, as we can see in the lower image there. So yeah, the corona never looks the same.
So it'd be interesting to see if we can see what the corona will look like during the totalities that are coming up. And during totality, we get to take. And during totality, if you're lucky enough to be out there, you actually can take your eclipse glasses off. But before that, when it's partial like this, wear your glasses, use your filters. And we'll see that, right, during totality, that they will take the filter off their telescopes so that we can hopefully observe the corona.
Right. So even when we're looking at this, this fairly narrow crescent sun here, that's still incredibly bright. So the only way to get images of it is using a filter, and the only way to look at it is using eclipse glasses. Yeah, even when that crescent sun is just the merest crescent, even when there's just 1% of the sun's disk showing, it is still incredibly bright and requires proper solar filters for viewing. So yeah, it really is when the sun is completely hidden that it's safe to take off the glasses. Looks like we're back in Volcano Villarrica, and we are now about 3 minutes away from totality. And finally, it is starting to really get darker. Yeah. The big change in light level really just comes in that final 5 minutes before totality. Until more than 80% of the sun has been eclipsed, there is very little difference in the amount of sunlight on the ground. But now, for sure, here we are. 2.5 minutes from totality. It's definitely getting darker.
And if we didn't know better, we'd think that this was sunset, right? It's like the sun going down on a cloudy day, and it just gets darker and darker. But we know that there's an eclipse under that, above those clouds.
Right. So yeah, local time. This is 1 o'clock on a summer's afternoon. And if the clouds weren't there, we would see coming from the west. We would be able to see the umbra, the moon's dark shadow, actually approaching from over the western horizon and moving towards our location here. Well, and now as we're watching, it is yes, the light is fast disappearing there.
And we're just gonna kind of stay and look. We can talk a little bit about what we can see during totality if we can actually see the sun. We've got some other features other than just the corona that we can see. We can see something called the diamond ring effect. We can see something called Bailey's beads, and we do have a diagram, but we want to keep you looking at this dark image here of it just going black.
One of the things when you have a clouded out eclipse is that you do actually, you can actually get proper darkness. Kind of one of the surprises with totality on a very clear day is that it doesn't go completely dark. The solar corona that we talked about, it's much, much fainter than the moon, but it is about as bright as a full moon.
One of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right, but not enough about the subject to know you're wrong. There's like a gazillion hours of me on the internet. In almost every case, I'm talking about the universe, black holes, the Big Bang, time travel, God. But what I'm going to do in this masterclass is teach you how to think. The goal here is to train your mind how to see the world differently, how to question what others say. I've come to realize that there are three categories of truth: personal truth, political truths, and the objective truths that shape our understanding of the universe. The interesting thing about an objective truth is that it's true no matter what. Imagine that. By the time we're done, you will be equipped with some of the methods and tools so you can turn data into information, information into knowledge, knowledge into wisdom. We all have susceptibility to bias. Search engines on the internet are the epitome of confirmation bias. And you're going to use that as evidence that you are correct? No. The good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it. What does it mean to be skeptical? What does it mean to be convinced by data? A proper skeptic questions what they're unsure of, but recognizes when valid evidence is presented to change their mind. I will equip you to not only find objective truths, but then communicate to others how to get there. It's not good enough to be right. You also have to be effective. The less connected you are to what is objectively true, the less likely you will be able to make decisions that will benefit your life, the life of your family, and even civilization itself. I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, and this is my masterclass.
Hi, this is Edu and Ray, and these are Barner, the ultimate computer glasses. Edu and Ray used to work in fancy offices. And what happens in fancy offices nowadays? They are full of screens, or how we call them, eye killers. Edu, Ray, and their colleagues were sitting in front of these eye killers for a lot of hours every day. Strained eyes, headaches, and also problems falling asleep were some of the symptoms suffered from looking at these eye killers. They were looking for a cure to reduce all these symptoms, using eye drops, those yellowish computer apps, looking at the horizon for 10 minutes every hour and blinking their eyes, even orange tint glasses, but none of them were good solutions. This is why we created Barner, the ultimate computer glasses.
Now, wow, look at that, Graham. We're looking at totality at Sierra, Colorado, and Argentina. There's a little bit of a diamond ring effect there behind the clouds before they change the filter back. Our images are slightly delayed because this is what we experienced when we were in Argentina as well, that we were struggling with quite a delay getting the images into the studio.
Right, right. So yes, these images are just slightly behind what is actually happening on the ground. But we have seen, sort of jumping between the various images there, we have seen the sun going into totality. And as we look at it here in Sierra Colorado, the sun is now just re-emerging from behind the moon, and we're getting another crescent sun on the opposite side of the moon. And well, that whole partial eclipse will now play out in reverse, and the moon will slowly uncover the sun.
So we had quite a bit of kerfuffle, a technical kerfuffle in the background here of our, we could listen to the studio working really hard to get the images up and talking about delays, but we did see some of the key features of total solar eclipse. We talked a little bit before we started looking at all these beautiful images. We talked a little bit about the solar corona and what it would look like. And oh, we've got a pretty stable image here from Valchetta, so that hopefully we'll get into totality there at some point. I'm not going to say what time it is because of the delay.
Right. So here it is. It's moving a little bit jerkily there. Yeah. But yes, this image from Valchetta is heading towards totality.
It just jumped.
Or it just jumped again there slightly. But I think the moon is moving to the right there as it's jumping. So I think this is still moving us gradually towards totality in Valchetta. As you said, Anna, we did, in the midst of all that, we did see some of these key features of totality. The crescent sun gets thinner and thinner. Just before the sun disappears altogether, the solar corona starts to become visible around the dark edge of the moon. When the solar corona, when the sun's crescent disappears finally, there is one final burst of light before it gets blocked completely by the sun. The effect of that final burst of light, combined with the solar corona appearing around the edge of the dark moon, that gives the effect famously known as the diamond ring, where that final jewel of sunlight combined with that the solar corona's ring around the moon does produce that that wonderful effect. I think we also saw a little bit of the there's after the diamond ring effect, there are some final beads of sunlight called Bailey's beads. These were named after the 19th century solar astronomer Francis Bailey. These are, in fact, the final bits of sunlight reaching us, coming through the valleys on the moon's surface. And these beads look like sort of beads on a necklace, hence the name. Then, when the very last of Bailey's beads has disappeared, that is when totality starts for real. That is when, if you're watching a total eclipse, that's when it's safe to remove eclipse glasses. And that's when we can then really enjoy the solar corona. The images we were watching, cameras do struggle to really capture the, the full impact of the solar corona. It is a very shimmery, ghost-like substance. It's very difficult to describe, and it's incredibly difficult to capture in a photograph or in a diagram. Although our team here at timeanddate.com has done a fantastic job with this illustration, which I think kind of gives that sort of otherworldly feeling of the solar corona, sort of coming out from behind the black moon. But yeah, watching pictures on the screen doesn't, well, it never
do
does
it justice.
Full justice to the solar corona. I think we also saw in some of those in.
No, I just wanted to say that we have to note that we can't see the diamond ring effect, the Bailey's bead, and the sun's corona at the same time. That's our diagram, just explaining the things that you can see.
Right. I think we also saw during some of those totality images, just after the start of totality, we can see some of the chromosphere. This is another layer of the sun just outside the photosphere. The photosphere is the very bright disk of the sun. Just surrounding that, there is a reddish layer called the chromosphere. And I think we did see a little bit of the red color in some of those images just as totality began. That was if you noticed that slightly red color around at the edge of the moon, that would have been the chromosphere, this reddish layer of the sun.
We did see, it was quite confusing. We saw a lot of images, and we're hoping to kind of get a little bit of order into it later on the show. But we were talking about this, that these are people filming eclipses for the very first time and really doing their best at it.
Oh, and yeah, filming eclipses is an incredibly difficult business. I mean, first of all, because the sun and the moon are moving across the sky at quite a rate. They're not just stationary in the sky. They are moving across the sky very quickly. So the camera has to be continuously adjusted to keep the sun and the moon in frame. The difference in light level between the crescent sun and totality, I mean, it drops by a factor of a million. So trying to keep a kind of a consistent image going from that very bright solar disk through to the very faint and very delicate solar corona, that is a huge challenge as well. Yeah, right. Filming eclipses is a difficult business.
Yeah, and we're going to leave you looking at this eclipse from Sierra Colorada. I think it's past totality, right, Graham?
I think now, right. I think here this is the yes. The moon is right. It's moving off to the right, so it's uncovering the sun on the left. So this is the second partial phase of the eclipse here from Sierra Colorada.
So make sure you go to timeanddate.live. You can check out our newsfeed there. You can check out pictures. You can send us questions. So we'll see you back here soon. Hello, welcome back to timeisdead.com. We're looking at this total solar eclipse from South America. It's gone through Chile, it's gone through Argentina, and now we're looking at the final partial phase of the eclipse. And we've been through several totalities. There was a little bit of a chaotic situation there going on, trying to catch all the different eclipses, and there was a bit of a delay. But we have a rerun for you here, and hopefully that will help us kind of gather our thoughts and our vision, I guess, to see what the eclipse looked like. So take it away, Graham, and explain what we're going to be looking at. We're looking at Sierra Colorada, the location there.
Okay, so this is right in the middle of Patagonia, so it's very close to the eclipse maximum, which was the kind of the longest totality today. We're starting this. This started about 50 seconds before totality began. There's a bit of cloud we can see here. There's a little bit of changing the filter there, where there's difference in brightness. We're kind of seeing there a little bit of the diamond ring, because there was that little final bright, that final bright jewel of sunlight, and that's now given way to the solar corona, which is what we're looking at here. As we said before, it is really difficult to really capture the solar corona on video. Also, there are some clouds about here, which is affecting these images as well. I think we can see there, Anna, that it is a slightly elongated solar corona. It's not perfectly symmetrical. It is a little bit wider at the side than at the top. So this is the solar corona that we're looking at, the sun's outer atmosphere. It is a plasma. It's charged gas, and it's being warped by the sun's magnetic field. Possibly around the edge of the sun, we are seeing that sort of slightly reddish kind of there. We mentioned the red chromosphere, which is just outside the visible surface of the sun. There is this reddish layer of the sun. Again, it's there the whole time, but we can only see it during totality, when the sun's bright central disk is covered. And I think, we are seeing a sort of a reddish color on the left edge of the sun there as totality comes to an end, and the photosphere, the bright bit, there's the diamond ring. We get that amazing sort of jewel of sunlight suddenly goes dark again as the filter goes back on the camera. Right, because that difference between the solar corona and that crescent sun, just that narrow crescent sun, is just 100 millions of difference of orders of magnitude. So the solar filter goes on, and there we are back looking at the crescent sun back into the partial eclipse phase. So that was just under 2 minutes of totality from Sierra Colorada in Argentina, and that all happened. That all happened about 35 minutes ago.
Must have been amazing to be there on the ground and see this happen in real life. Because you cannot, the images cannot compare to the feeling of standing there while it goes dark, and the dogs barking and the birds going crazy, and it just going cold and dark in the middle of the day, in the middle of summer.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I keep going
exactly.
back
It's-
to how it would be for someone who didn't know that this would happen. Like, we've been preparing for this and wanting to travel to it, but imagine just being on the ground there and it just happening above your head.
Right. And of course, it's not really above your head, because I mean, it is the whole environment around you. The environment that you're in changes completely. As you said, the temperature drops. There's changes in the humidity level, which your body really notices. It gets darker, but it's not just getting darker. It's the whole quality of the light changes. It's just like the light becomes thinner, and it's a very strange light that we never experience. As you said, animals start behaving oddly. Plants start closing up for the night. It is happening all around you, and if you're with other people, I mean, the reaction of humans is something incredible as well. And yeah, even when we know it's coming, even experienced eclipse watchers who have seen many eclipses, they still get that amazing feeling at totality, which is why they keep going back at great trouble and great expense and great organization to keep chasing these eclipses. It is because it is just an extraordinary experience. And absolutely, if you think back to the early days and what that would have been like for early humans to go through, literally feeling like the end of the world. Yeah, it was been an utterly overwhelming experience.
It is quite a kick. I can attest to that. We are going to come back in a few minutes. We'll lead you onto our page, timeanddate.live. We've got our news stream there. There's pictures there. You can ask questions there. You can share your images there. There's all kinds of fun stuff on our news stream. And we'll see you back soon. We'll talk a little bit about Chile and Argentina, because we were there last year and they've got another eclipse this year. So let's talk a little bit about why they get so many eclipses. So see you soon. Well, we're back. We're pretty far into this total solar eclipse. We've been through totality, and we're in the middle of the partial phase here in Piedra del Águila in Argentina. It still looks pretty weird and amazing, the sun, and it kind of makes you think of a moon instead of a sun, with the moon cutting into it like that. And this total solar eclipse has just been visible in a narrow belt in the narrow part of Chile and Argentina and South America. And they've really been hogging all the eclipses, haven't they, Graham?
Right. So the total solar eclipses happen about every 18 months. So the last one happened about 18 months ago. And well, we were there. That was also a total solar eclipse across Chile and Argentina. And yeah, it does seem that Chile and Argentina do seem to get a lot of these kind of exclusive eclipses just for them. And well, here we have an interesting map that shows how Chile and Argentina have been hogging a lot of eclipses. So what we're looking at on this map is we are looking at a period of less than 10 years. We are looking at 5 solar eclipses that take place over a period of under 10 years. Now, some of these eclipses are total eclipses, and some of them are annular eclipses. An annular eclipse is where the moon is a little bit further away from the Earth, so it's a little bit smaller in the sky, and it can't quite cover the whole of the sun. So you're left with the moon in the middle of the sun and this very narrow annulus or ring shape around it. Here we are looking at 5 paths of totality or paths of annularity. They all go across Chile and Argentina, and they're all pretty much exclusive to those 2 countries. Number 1 was an annular solar eclipse. This was back in 2017, started in the Pacific, went across Chile, Argentina, and across the Atlantic. It did just make it into Africa. Angola, Congo just caught the very end of this annular eclipse. Number 2, this was the last total eclipse. This was the one that we brought you live on timeanddate.com from San Jose de Hachal in Argentina. Started in the Pacific, didn't quite make it to the Atlantic. Here, the path of totality finished in Argentina, just south of Buenos Aires. Number 3, this very thin yellow line, that is today's total eclipse. Again, starts in the Pacific, ends in the Atlantic, exclusive to Chile and Argentina. And then we have 2 annular eclipses coming up, which follow exactly the same pattern. There's number 4 in 2024, and there's eclipse number 5 on this map in 2027. Again, pretty much exclusive to Chile and Argentina. And it does look from this map that, you know, Chile and Argentina are having all the fun when it comes to
Is it a coincidence?
Well, yes and no. But there is a reason why Chile and Argentina sort of get these events all to themselves. We can see from this map that the moon's shadow, you know, generally moves from the west to the east. So the general movement of the shadow is in that sort of west to east direction. Now, Chile and Argentina, they are both very much north to south countries. So they actually have a better chance than many countries of having the path of totality or annularity pass over them, because they are covering a very big distance in that north to south direction. And when they get totality or annularity, it tends to be pretty exclusive to them, because to the west, there is the big Pacific Ocean. To the east, there is the Atlantic. You know, there is nothing to the left, nothing to the right of them, which is why we often end up saying, you know, this eclipse will be visible from a small part of Chile and Argentina. And we, you know, we're saying that a lot at the moment.
And there are lots of eclipses coming up in the future that will not only be visible from Chile and Argentina, fortunately. And you might be able to read some of them on the blog right now on our news feed on our live page, but you'll definitely be able to read about them on timeanddate.com. And we will be talking a bit about them later on in the show. But we'll be back later on to answer some questions about the eclipse and maybe show a bit, maybe quite exclusive video, I will say. So tune in, and we'll see you soon. Hi. So we're kind of 20 minutes away from the end of the eclipse here in Piedra del Águila. They've been through the first partial phase and then through totality, and now we're kind of at the last end of totality here. We can see the moon's disk moving out from the sun there at the, is it the 2 o'clock position, Graham? Is that what we say on the clock face?
Yeah, the final contact, the point where the moon's disk kind of leaves the edge of the sun, that is going to be around about 2 o'clock on the clock face of the sun, as seen from Piedra del Águila.
So just about 20 minutes to go, but we do have a bit of a rerun of what happened an hour ago. So we're going to have a look at that. And here you can see, Graham, you can explain. We've got the corona and we've got, you called it chroma something?
Yes. So this is a very beautiful shot of totality. The the sun's corona peeking out from behind that black disk of the moon. Again, here, Anna, I think we can see that the corona is slightly elongated. It is looking a little bit thicker at the sides than it is at the top and the bottom. It is looking slightly different to the corona that we saw from the rerun from Sierra Colorada. That's simply because it's different equipment, different lenses, different filters. It's just capturing slightly different parts of the corona. We're seeing a little bit of the reddish color from the chromosphere there as well, just
Chromosphere.
from the side. And by the way, Anna, you know, we've been talking about you know, early humans and the effect of, you know, things going dark and getting cold and the humidity changing and all the rest of it. You know, there is, of course, you know, added to that, there is the effect of actually then looking up and seeing this, you know, this black hole in the sky surrounded by this, you know, this sort of ghostly halo. Yes, I mean, this does, you know, just provide, you know, the final, you know, what must have been the final, you know, overwhelming effect on people who, you know, for whom this happened in the middle of just, you know, a normal, bright, regular, sunny day.
And also, even though we couldn't see the sun in Chile, in the volcano Villarrica, we could see that it quickly became quite dark. We've done a little time lapse here. It's an hour sped up to 1 minute, and we can now see how quickly it gets dark.
Yeah, so in this rerun, 1 second of this rerun time equals 1 minute of actual time. So we're looking at about an hour here, sped up to about a minute. And yeah, the very black bit is just that, you know, that relatively quick couple of seconds in the middle of this rerun. And the rest of this video is still pretty bright. Yes, the darkness really comes around totality.
And it must have been quite scary, that as well, I reckon, that darkness in the middle of a normal summer's day, even though it's raining.
Well, absolutely. And you know, and again, you do get a much, you know, a much darker darkness when things are surrounded by cloud. Yeah, having clouds and bad weather on an eclipse is just awful, and it's absolutely awful luck on the team there who you know, who did all that work and all that preparation to get set up there at Villarrica. You know, the one very slight upshot is they got proper blackness and proper darkness in the middle of the day, but that is little consolation for missing all of those other sites of totality, particularly the solar corona.
And when we come back, we can answer some of your questions. We've got a few questions that have landed in our inbox and in our comments field. And you can continue sending them to timeanddate.live and read more about the eclipse and other astronomy phenomena in our news feed. You can ask your questions, share your images. You can do all those things on timeanddate.live, and we'll see you back here soon. Welcome back. As you can see, we're showing reruns from Sierra Colorado in Argentina. We've run out of images of the sun. We've got our map here showing where the totality is happening. It's right out in the ocean. So yeah, we've got nothing to show anymore. But we can answer some questions, because we did get some questions in, and I'm just going to shoot them at you, Graham, and I'm going to ask you, how long can totality last? So this time we had around 2 minutes, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, so totality can go for longer than 2 minutes. The length of totality is related to a few things. Firstly, it depends on the size of the moon. If the moon is closer to us, the moon is bigger and it can cover more of the sun. It also depends a bit on the size of the sun. The distance from the Earth to the sun changes slightly throughout the year. So if we're slightly further away from the sun is slightly smaller, so the moon can cover more of it. It's to do with your position on the Earth. The shadow is moving from the west to the east. If you can travel a bit faster to keep up with the shadow, then your totality will be a bit longer. And the Earth does spin faster around the equator than it does at the poles. So if you're at the equator, that can give you a bit of extra speed, which means you can kind of keep up with the moon's shadow better. Finally, depending on whether the moon is directly overhead or at a slight angle, that can also add a little bit to your totality duration. If you put all those things together, you can calculate a kind of a theoretical maximum for the longest possible totality, and that comes out at about 7.5 minutes. And that is, we actually do often get close to that. Within the next decade, for example, in 2027, there is a total solar eclipse that is going across North Africa and the Middle East. Luxor in Egypt will have 6 minutes and 22 seconds of totality in 2027. Yeah, longer totalities than today are certainly possible, but never more than 7.5 minutes.
Can you explain why the corona is so important to study during an eclipse?
Yeah, so we talked earlier about this this small army of people that often travel to see eclipses. Some of them are solar scientists, and they are studying the solar corona, because even though we have all this amazing technology and satellites that are studying the sun, the best time to study the solar corona is still during those few minutes of totality during a total solar eclipse. So yeah, total eclipses do always provide a good opportunity for solar physicists to go to work. One of the people who couldn't make it to this eclipse was Jay Pasakoff, who is one of the leading solar astronomers. He has been studying the solar corona for decades. He's been to 35 total solar eclipses to study the solar corona. This is one of the first total eclipses that he's missed in a long time. And 35 totalities is an impressive record when you consider that total eclipses only happen about every 18 months. It's important to study the solar corona because there's still a lot about it that we don't understand. One of the mysteries of the solar corona is to do with its temperature. The surface of the sun, that's the photosphere, that's the bit of the sun we can see. The temperature of that is about 5,500 degrees centigrade. As you move away from the sun into the corona, the temperature strangely goes up, and it goes up a lot. It goes up to something like 2 million degrees centigrade. Now, the reasons for that are generally understood. It's thought that it's to do with the sun's magnetic field, but the exact mechanism by how that happens and how the solar corona gets heated to these really high temperatures in this very kind of counterintuitive way. As you move away from the sun, the temperature goes up. There's still a lot of detail that has to be worked out. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on understanding the solar corona. And the best time to do it is, every 18 months or so, you get 2 or 3 or 4 minutes to focus all your equipment on the corona and try to get a few more answers step by step, bit by bit.
But we don't only look up at the sun, we also look up at the moon now, and the stars and the shooting stars. We do have quite a few meteor showers throughout the year, and I'm just going to shift topic here because we're not looking at the sun anymore. We're looking at meteor showers, and we've got one going on right now, the Geminids meteor shower. Can you explain a bit about that one, Graham? It's peaking just now, isn't it?
Yes, the Geminids meteor shower is always this time of year, and it's really one of the big, reliable meteor showers. This year is particularly good because system of telescopes located in Spain, and it's been set up specifically to monitor meteor strikes on the moon. And the next day they went through their data and they were able to give the official confirmation